way,
It,
so I will not be able to see you.
it makes no difference, my brother.
I can't hear you well.
You can't hear me well?
I think I got to turn up the TV volume. You keep talking.
You got me? Is it better
Keep
now?
talking.
Is it better now?
You're not getting any louder. Chuck, I'm sorry, I gotta go grab my IT person. Give me a second, okay?
Okay.
This is all supposed to work. I don't know what your schedule's like, but sorry.
Not a problem.
Yeah, I can hear him a lot better now. Okay, cool. Thank you. Bye.
So you got me better now?
Yeah, you're just gonna have to speak up or like speak loudly. Yeah. Sorry, man.
Not a problem. So what you been up to?
Hi, Chuck. A lot. It's really weird how despite the on-premise woes, obviously with COVID and shutdowns, our business is booming. So it's a really strange time because you're doing almost 12% more in sales with about 30% less accounts.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are most of these going to your retailers?
Yeah, so most of it's going to retailers. There's a handful of restaurants that and I don't know if this looks weird, me talking to you like this on the camera, if you want me to face this way. Yeah, so what's a lot of it's going to retailers, and then there's a handful of restaurants that seem to have kind of figured out the equation of carry out and doing carry out beverage. We were trying to encourage people to do that right off the bat, to do more carry out things and kind of reprogram and redo their whole program to be more carry out savvy or central. And then to give value adds. So, you can go to like a Plum Market or something and pick up dinner and a bottle of wine. So a restaurant has to be able to offer something better or bigger than that. So we did a lot of virtual dinners where it'd be like, wines paired with a virtual dinner, and that worked out to some degree.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So what is your title at Vintage?
So I am the fine wine portfolio manager.
Okay.
Which is just, that's my main title, but there's certainly some other stuff I do.
Okay. And what does that generally entail at Vintage?
So the biggest responsibility of mine, Vintage Wine Company is a pretty cool company. We're family owned. Started in '78 as actually a German wine importer that just kind of had some lucky breaks, did some things right, and grew into a much larger company. So it's at this point, we started with 3 employees doing this German wine import company, and now we have well over 100 and 52 reps covering the whole state. So we have a lot of larger brands like Josh, if you're familiar with Josh Cellars, and Yellowtail, Coppola. So some of these like kind of household names. And then my job at the company is basically everything that isn't a household name, and things that would fall into what's called a premium category, so like 25 and above. All of that falls under my guys to kind of manage those portfolios and build relationships, because most of those are more relationship driven than chain store driven, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
What certifications do you have?
So I have the Certified Specialist of Wine and the Quartermaster Sommeliers level 2. So the certified.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to achieve those certifications?
So that took me about 3 years of like pretty hard study. I didn't go, most people, like, I think start off their wine studies, a lot of people by I'm going to go get my CSW and this is the date. So I'm going to study to that. When I was doing this, I worked for a restaurant called Andiamo. And they had decided it would be prudent to have a wine steward or expert at each restaurant. So they selected one of us from each one. And every other weekend for 3 years, a big group of us got together. We would study different topics and then blind taste together. Do food pairings and all this stuff. And the buyer there was really wanted to make sure that we succeeded when we went to take this test because it's not free or cheap. So she made darn sure we were ready to do it by the time we got the opportunity to. So I think all of us pretty much passed with damn near perfect scores. I know I got a 98 out of 100, I think, or something like that on the CSW. And then once you've worked that hard for that long, so that was 3 years, and then we worked that hard for that long. Two of us really wanted to do the SOM too, because it was fairly parallel as far as material. So we both went and did the sommelier, the first, and then passed that. And then I think it was maybe another year after that when I did the cert. And that was just towards the end of my restaurant career. And at that point, once I finished the certification process in wine, my role at Andiamo was kind of changing, and I started going more spirits. So I was actually doing like tequila education, and I was the Cointreau, if you know, the orange liqueur brand educator for the state for Remy Cointreau, like a contracted job. So at that point, I was really happy with wine. I still am, and I still love it. Obviously, it's what I do. But at that point, I thought that I had reached the credential level that I needed to. I just wanted to explore the topics, and that's what I do now.
Cool. Now, personally, do you have any favorite wine region or regions that you particularly focus on, or that you just find joy in?
Yeah, I mean, I would say my biggest drive in the wine industry was always diversity and finding things that were new. So my favorite thing is the new thing I discovered always. It always will be. So I will say that there's a couple things that I find myself gravitating back towards as my career grows. A and B, like there's a lot of things that I had experienced that maybe I wasn't ready for in the early days. I'm 10 years removed from all of the education stuff. So so tasting a bunch of things and then finding this bell curve back, I would say probably the things that I would hang my hat on the most are going to be white Burgundies. So Chardonnay from the original part of France that they kind of came from, up to Chablis. Like Chablis might just for like every day. Champagne, absolutely. So I obviously Chardonnay is a big a big thing for me, but a very particular kind of place for it. Spain in general, mostly northern, but I love Spanish wines. Always have. That goes way back to the beginning. So kind of I guess Aragonia and like the surrounding region, mostly Grenache driven wines up there. I love all of it, and I just love the culture there and everything else too. And then northern Italy, Piedmont and Lombardy would probably be my others for Italy. So Nebbiolo and Nebbiolo based wines I'm a big fan of as well.
Awesome.
But that's frankly I could go on for another 30 minutes about things I like. So it really is like I like everything, and I like experience and stuff.
Okay. Are there any regions that you feel are underrepresented in the Michigan wine market?
Oh, absolutely. It's odd to say, but all these years of doing the purchasing now, and with the samples that get sent our way, believe it or not, with how much Italian wine is out there in the market, most of the Italian wine that you see or everybody knows is pretty much focused in a handful of small regions and varietals. There's thousands of varietals in Italy. There's probably thousands of regions. I mean, it's really, really one of the hardest topics to tackle in wine. That is super rewarding. So yeah, I would say other regions or other parts of Italy is a big underrepresented. I'm personally a big fan of New York. So Finger Lakes, I think, makes some pretty awesome wines. I'm a huge Riesling fan too. So there's two places for Riesling. Western Australia, which is like a really small sliver, makes amazing Rieslings, oddly. And then the Finger Lakes in New York, I think. Fairly underrepresented. Something that used to, I think, be popular, but isn't these days, Alsace. So the northeastern tip of France that butts up to Germany. And then Germany for Rieslings and Pinot Gris and a few other white varietals. Really just an amazing place that I don't think we see enough of, or people really necessarily these days know the quality level. I mean, the great vineyards and wineries of Germany, that used to be the wine. Like that was the hardest to get, the most sought after thing. And those wines are still amazing. Just people don't necessarily know them.
Yeah, well, just to piggyback on you bringing up the Alsace region,
Yeah.
that's like one of the regions I've really tried to expose more people to, especially those people who like bubbly, and the Cremant from Alsace is just freaking amazing.
It is, absolutely. The acidity that they get up there is beautiful. And something I've actually gotten into recently, English sparkling wines, if we're talking about sparkling wines. The stuff that you're getting out of like West Sussex and like the southern tip of the UK, amazing. Like just the purity of fruit that you got out of those wines is just beautiful.
Yeah, I'm reading a lot about the luxury brands buying up sparkling winemakers.
In that part, yeah.
Yeah.
Because frankly, it's getting pretty hot in Champagne these days. So as their alcohol starts to creep up, the wines aren't quite as elegant.
Right.
Most people like a good elegant champagne, so they're trying to find cooler climates. Hello, Chuck. Chuck, you're frozen. There he is.
There we go.
Oh, good. Got the sound back too. And now you get to look at you behind me. I'll minimize you again, so you don't. Unless you like the looking glass look.
No, I
looking
don't
good,
like
man.
Life.
Looking good. All right, cool. Back.
Yeah. So, favorite winemaker? Do you have a favorite winemaker?
I'm racking my brain. Simply put, no. I have a lot of winemakers I respect quite a bit for different styles of wine that they do. And there are certainly like groundbreaking type people that I'm a huge fan of. So I guess most recently, person I've had the chance to get to know, Telmo Rodriguez. He's a traveling winemaker in northern Spain. He has about 17 different projects all across northern Spain. So Spain went through this really long part of their history after phylloxera because they didn't really have the wipeout that a lot of Europe had. So they went through this long period where all the Europeans were getting the replacement for their Bordeaux's from Spain. So the shift was really, a couple hundred years ago from the mountains, which is the best fruit usually with the best drainage, into the valleys. So there was this like quality issue there. But what happened was a lot of these mountain vineyards that were harder to farm got abandoned for a long time. So there's a handful of people who are starting to purchase these old vineyards that have been, left dormant basically for 100 years, and just kind of clean them up, tighten them up, and start making wine from them again. And then take what are called mossel selections, so just different clippings from different older vines to keep that older vine material, and then grafting it onto the bulk vines down the hill. So basically, like, reclaiming what Spain was. And he's someone who does that, I think, to a very successful level that I'm pretty impressed to be able to work with for one of his projects. I would love to get the rest, but yeah, he's probably my most inspirational figure right now in winemaking.
Okay. We touched on your favorite regions or whatever. Are there any up and coming regions or winemakers that you're getting a lot of buzz on?
Absolutely. So there's two big pushes that I know of so one's just a wine region that was certainly underrepresented and undersold in the market, and that's Portugal. So Portugal is always, for most of us, known for port wine, but they're making really stunning dry reds now. That still, same reason I love Spain, frankly, that you can get like some of the best wines out of Spain for $30. You can find it for 25 out of Portugal for the most part, just because they don't have the worldly reputation yet, so you can still get really good values there. So that's one big movement in the wine world. There's also this this kind of whole natural wine movement that's been happening, which is really the dichotomy of the wine world is really interesting, or the beverage world right now is interesting to me, because on one end you've got people going less and less intervention and less additives and whatever. So just that whole natural wine movement, that's happening everywhere. And then on the other end, you've got White Claw, which is a hard seltzer. So it's basically a flavored vodka soda. And those are the two big movements. Like, they couldn't be more divergent if they wanted to be, but they're both killing it. So it's a really interesting time to be in beverage. So yeah, I would say if for wine trends that I'm finding interesting at the moment, I think Portugal is starting to make a break into the market, and then and Eastern European, and that's where a lot of the natural stuff came from originally, but Eastern European, and then just this natural wine thing with like the orange wines and the petulant naturals, the pet nats. You see just a lot of things that you would try with somebody and you'd be like, okay, that's just a flawed wine, but as people have honed the science of laying off winemaking, you try some really impressive and interesting examples of those things.
Definitely. What sells better statistically? Red, white, rosé, sweet and dry, sweet or dry?
I mean, statistically speaking, as much as we're talking about trends here, not that much changes really. So it's still Cabernet, then Chardonnay in the US. So it's still Cabernet, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio. Those are kind of like the horses there. And then everything else kind of ebbs and flows. Pinot Noir is on an uptick the last, ever since Sideways. So God, like 12 years ago now. So Pinot Noir is on an uptick. Malbec was on a big uptick, but that seems to have flattened off. Merlot, I 5 years ago would have thought that was on its resurgency, but that still hasn't really hit. Rosé, oddly, I thought it plateaued. It was on its way up. Last year was pretty flat, and then this year, even with all of this going on, rosé is just through the roof for growth purposes. And then Prosecco, of all the sparkling wines, it's interesting. It's always interesting to me that like Prosecco is the one that's becoming like the fan favorite and everybody drinks all the time. It's not like it's a beautiful wine, just very different winemaking than its contemporaries. So so it's interesting, but Prosecco just keeps growing year after year after year like crazy.
It's probably the price point, even though Franciacorta is probably better.
Well, it's we can all say better, worse, whatever, but just the winemaking. So like Franciacorta and Cava and other affordable sparkling wines are still made in what's called the traditional method, or the where they do the second fermentation, make it sparkling in the bottle. Prosecco, very much on purpose, is not done that way. It's done in autoclaves and like larger Charente methods. So it's not, they're carbonating it still through a natural carbonation through yeast, but it's in this larger tank. So I feel like the bubbles isn't as fine. And for all of the centuries and years where the best bubbly wine you could have had the finest, most beautiful bubble and the most lasting effervescence, for us to go to what is, it's, it's fairly big bubbles, and typically just because it didn't have the time to saturate, so it's fairly big bubbles, and no like yeastiness, none of the character that you get out of it. It's very much fruit focused. It's really fresh, vibrant, and refreshing. I mean, I get it from that perspective, but it's just interesting that it's like contemporaries in the price range even that are made more in the steps of Champagne aren't going with it.
Okay, you're back.
What's that?
All right, you're back because we just disconnected again for a second.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting. Okay, so just to recap, that was super interesting and insightful.
But generally,
where did you cut out? Where did we cut out?
Right about when you were getting into the discussion of the Charmat process.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, Cava and Franciacorta and some of these other sparkling, and even like California sparkling wines for the most part are made in the traditional Champagne method, where they do the secondary fermentation in the bottle. So all of those have been overshadowed by Prosecco, which is just, it's definitely more fruit forward and it's more floral. So it's, I guess, more pretty and delicate, but just for centuries, everybody was pursuing Champagne because that was like the thing. So that was like the pinnacle of where you could get. And now this whole other category is overtaken it popularity wise. And it's interesting because it's, it's like everybody had it wrong for, 600 years. It's crazy.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, times change, palates change.
Indeed.
And I still think a lot of it, like you stated, though, I mean, with climate change, a lot of the flavor profiles may be changing, especially in Champagne.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, that's really it for me.
Okay.
I just wanted to pick your brain so that I could post this to my people, and because I'm trying to get different aspects. I'm talking to winemakers, I'm talking to somms, I'm talking to wholesalers, so that people get a feel for what the wine industry really is.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, man. Thanks for wanting me to hang out with
you. Yeah,
I'm flattered.
Yeah, I'll be in touch. Did you get my email?
I did. I started looking it up last night, actually. The winery.
Yeah.
So
she's
I gotta
really
do a little. I don't have anything from Yorkville Highlands at the moment, so I'm certainly intrigued by that area. I didn't get to dig into if they're organic, but I feel like almost everybody up there is.
Right.
So I have to dig into some winemaking stuff, and then I'd love to talk to him.
Cool. Okay. I'll talk to you later, brother.
All right, take care, Chuck. Thank you very much. Sorry for the slow start. Bye.
Don't worry about it. Bye.